Hello everyone, well what a video we've got for you here. Yes, it's the once a year happening of Solar Sunday at GavsWeatherVids. So we're going to bring you up to date with all things Solar Cycle 25 wise. We're going to show you all of the updated trackers. We're going to tell you how Solar Cycle 25 is currently performing, and we're going to look at the past forecast and see how the Solar Cycle is performing. Now we're heading towards solar maximum, you know, against expectations, against the forecast that we had at the start of the season. So, or the cycle. So, I shall get on with that for you in a moment. Just to say that the first of Virus 8 was the 6 a.m. upload. We'll have a 10 to 14 there for you later on this afternoon as well. It's Easter Sunday, so Sunday on Easter Sunday. So, I hope you're all having a lovely Easter day, and thank you so much for being here and sharing this time with me and with GavsWeatherVids on your Easter Sunday. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so to Shryan, and also thank you so to Richard for the help on this update. Thank you so to Richard for the incredible Solar Sunday gift. Thank you so much, Rich. I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, my friend. And later on, when we look at the predictions for Solar Cycle 25, we'll see a couple of charts, but Richard has sorted out for us to see how the Solar Cycle is performing against expectations. So thank you so much to Richard Shaw, and thank you so much to Shryan as well for getting all of the solar trackers updated. And with that said, I think we're going to crack on with Solar Sunday 2023. Why not do that? So the first thing we're going to look at, of course, is the solar disk. We've got to, haven't we? This is how the solar disk is looking on our side of this today from Sirham.net. We actually haven't got that many sunspot regions. We've got one down here, and we've got one over there. Otherwise, it's not all that much away sunspot. Despite that, though, solar activity is at moderate levels, but it's expected to fall to low levels in the next 3 days. So, although we're moderate at the moment, or today when I'm recording the video, it's expected that in the next 3 days, solar activity will then fall to low levels. This is the GavsWeatherVids Solar Sunday Extended Solar Tracker. This has been sent through by Shryan. This is showing how the solar cycle is looking right the way back to the beginning of Solar Cycle 25. So that's it. That is Solar Cycle 25 so far. So the orange line and orange spots depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot and solar activity. You see that at the beginning of the solar cycle, of course, we begin at a very low level of solar activity. Our first spike in this sunspot cycle of number 25 is just there at the end of 2020. That was kind of a false dawn, though, and then we saw things dropping down through the first half of 2021. Second half of 2021 is when the solar cycle really starts to move, and since then the trend has been very quickly upwards, actually. So we see that the biggest rise in this solar cycle, being spike in the solar cycle, happened there at the beginning, early on in 2023, at the beginning of the year. That's the highest point of the solar cycle so far, where we see the orange spots going up to really quite a significantly high level. I do wonder whether that might be like the first peak of this solar cycle. Very often in solar cycles you'll get 2 peaks, one happening, you know, earlier on in the solar maximum, and another one a couple of years afterwards. I wonder whether that could be the first peak of the solar cycle. That could be the first maximum. We won't know until we're past solar maximum and we can look at it, you know, and see when the peaks occur. But that might be the first peak of solar cycle number 25. Since then, the trend has been more downwards. So you can see the green line, which is the trend line, that's a 30-day average. You can see how that has been trending upwards, but not in a linear process. We get peaks and troughs and peaks and troughs, of course. However, the current trough appears to be quite sustained, actually, from that peak. And actually, the trend line is still dropping here. Just about make that out to that level. After the peak in the solar cycle there, after the spike we see, but we have actually in recent days been going down some quite low levels of her activity through March and into April 2023. It will start picking up again, don't get me wrong, but for the time being, the solar cycle sunspots have kind of eased off the gas a little bit. So for the moment, we're having a little bit of a pause. But the trend is very clearly and consistently upwards, and that will continue over the next year or two. Richard sent this through. This is Spotless Days and the current Spotless stretch, so you can see that for solar cycle 23 so far. We have had 0 days without sunspots, so every day so far this year has had sunspots. And last year, 2022, just had 1 day without sunspots. That was less than 1% of the year. Of course, we only have to go back to 2019 to find our solar minimum year from solar cycle 24 to 25. That had 281 days without sunspots. Our comparable year for the solar cycle this year is 2012. So 2023 is comparable with 2012 from solar cycle 24. It's a comparable year, if you like, for this period of the solar cycle. In 2012, we had 0 days without sunspots. So every day in 2012 had at least one sunspot. 2011 had 2 days without sunspots, so the comparable year with that would be 2022. You can see that in solar cycle 24, the following year also had every day with sunspots in 2013. We did get 1 day without sunspots, quite strangely, in 2014. Well, that is like the solar maximum year. Solar maximum solar cycle 24 occurred in February 2014, but despite that, 1 day was actually spotless. And then in 2015, we have, again, no days without sunspots. Every day has a sunspot in 2015. Then 2016 is when we start descending into solar minimum. So in 2016, we find that we get 32 days without sunspots. That increases in 2017 to 104 days without sunspots. 2018, 221 days without sunspots. And then, of course, solar minimum year occurs in 2019 when 77% of the year, going to be 281 days of 2019, do not have any sunspots. So if we work that out, so our comparable year 2023 is 2012. So if we work that out, 2024, the comparable year will be 2013. 2025, the comparable year will be 2014. 2026, the comparable year will be 2015. So it should be 2027 if the solar cycle carries on performing, in terms of spotless days, like last year. It may, like last solar cycle 24, it may not do, but if it does, it will be 2027 that we begin to get, what am I doing there? It'll be 2027 that we begin to get spotless days starting to appear. And then we'll get more of them in 2028, of course. And then there'll be even more in 2029. And then solar minimum year should be 2030. So let's make that a bit bigger. 2030 should be the solar minimum, the solar cycle 25, and then going to the beginning, of course, of solar cycle 26, and that will be the next solar cycle occurring. So, the next 2 or 3 years, we're expecting most days to have sunspots. It'd be 2027 that we probably start seeing signs of the next solar minimum. Thank you so much, Richard, for that. Right, this is how solar cycle 23, 24, and 25 are comparing with one another at this point. So the orange line of spots is solar cycle 23. That ran from 1996 until 2008. The blue line and spots is solar cycle 24. That went from 2008 to 2019. And then the green line and spots, that is, of course, solar cycle 2025, the current solar cycle, which is shorter because we're still in the first half of the solar cycle. So you can see how big solar cycle number 23 was compared to solar cycle number 24. We know that solar cycle 24 was our weakest solar cycle for about a century. and dramatically weaker than solar cycle 23. Solar cycle 23, of course, was weaker than solar cycle 22. So we have been seeing a weakening of the solar cycles, I think, since solar cycle 22, from 21, and then 23 was weaker than 22, 24 was significantly weaker than 23. You notice that we get two peaks of both the solar cycles. So solar cycle 23 has a double peak. The first peak occurs in 2000. That's the biggest peak, actually, of the solar cycle. And then solar cycle 23 peaks a second time in 2002 there. A double peak for solar cycle number 23. Again, we get a double peak for solar cycle 24 as well. The first peak occurs, of course, it's a much smaller peak, but the first peak occurs in 2011. The second peak, which is the peak of the solar cycle, occurs in 2014 with that spike in the blue line and spots. Right, so that is the peak that we have for solar cycle number 25. Back at the end of 2022, back at the end of last year. Since then, we are at a rather lower level of sunspot activity, but not dramatically so, actually. You can see, but we're not that far away from the peak that we had there. I'm not sure if that's January or December. That might be January 2023, actually, because I think we've got February there and March is there. So the first peak is January 2023, actually, I think, rather than December 2022. Anyway, you get the idea, but that might be, it could be the first peak of the solar cycle 25, and then we might get our second peak, when we get in towards 2025 itself. It does look as though this solar cycle is a more active cycle than 24, so we'll talk about a little bit more about this later on in the video, but there was the idea that this solar cycle would be very, very similar in nature, very similar solar cycle 24. It looks like it's actually a more active solar cycle than 24. You notice how solar cycle 24 has quite a slow lift up, very, very slow lift up actually, into the first solar maximum, whereas this one has moved rather more quickly. Still a little bit delayed, actually, compared to like 23, where we really did take off very, very rapidly with solar cycle number 23. So it's still been a little bit delayed compared to an active solar cycle, but it has lifted up towards solar maximum in a rather more quicker fashion. This is how solar cycle 25 is looking compared to all solar cycles. So you can see that it is still at the weaker end of the solar cycles, actually. So these are the more active solar cycles up here, of course. They're the really big solar cycles that we've had over the years and over the centuries. We're down here. Black line is the current solar cycle, so we're down at the lower end of the solar cycle. I mean, you can say, but we will be staying at the lower end of the solar cycle, from now on. We've got so much activity, we're so far into solar cycle, but I mean, you can see where this is going to go. We're probably going to do something a little bit like that, maybe. We're certainly not going to go up there, we're not going to suddenly see this lifting up. Or if we did, it would be very unusual. It would be away from all other solar cycles. Generally, by this point in the solar cycle, you can pretty much say, how the solar cycle is going to trend. So we are going to have another relatively weak solar cycle, actually, but we are a little bit stronger than solar cycle 24. The thick green line here, that Shrine has put in here, that is solar cycle number 24, and you can see we are a little bit ahead of that. So it's a little bit more active than solar cycle number 24, but still at the weaker end of the solar cycles. Nowhere near the Dalton minimum solar cycles, number 5 and number 6. That's that one and that one. So again, not a Dalton minimum, and actually a little bit stronger than solar cycle 24, but still at the weaker end of the range for most of the solar cycles. Just narrowing that down to the weakest solar cycles, this is going to be the two Dalton minimum solar cycles of 5 and 6, and then solar cycle 12, 14, 16, and the last solar cycle number 24. We're in the mix. So just here we've got solar cycles 5 and 6. They are the two Dalton minimum solar cycles occurring in the early 1800s. We are up here with 12, 14, 16 and 24. We are a little bit ahead of 24, so we're somewhere very close to solar cycle 12, actually. The last solar cycle, 24, ran quite close to solar cycle 12, but this solar cycle is running even closer, actually, to solar cycle 12. So it'll be interesting to monitor that and see whether we continue to do so. We're also quite close to solar cycle 14 as well. Solar cycle 16 is the most active of these weakest solar cycles. That one only just makes it in as the weakest, as one of the weakest solar cycles, and we are under solar cycle number 16. So a little bit more active than 24, under solar cycle 16, and definitely within the weaker end of the range, albeit we are a little bit ahead of expectations. So this was the consensus for solar cycle 25 at the beginning of the solar cycle. And you see the consensus, Richard got this together for us. Thank you so much to Shrine, by the way, for all of the trackers. Thank you so much to lovely, lovely Shrine Brewer for all of those trackers. Richard got this together for us. So this is how solar cycle 25 was expected to perform. This was the consensus prediction across all solar cycles. And the consensus was that we would get our solar maximum in July 2025, which we still might do, and very much on a par with solar cycle number 24 in terms of the way the solar cycle would perform. Well under solar cycle 23. And we will be under solar cycle 23, by the way. There's no chance that we're going to get up to that level with this solar cycle. But I think we're going to be a bit above the consensus, the expectation prediction there. So I would anticipate we might get somewhere up to here in the end. So if you envisage, like if I draw a line from there, we're probably with our trend going to be, I'm talking about the trend line, by the way, the thick line. So the spike will probably be up there somewhere, maybe, in terms of the sunspot number. So I think, we're going to be a little bit above solar cycle 24, but not dramatically so. We will be above the consensus forecast, though, which is just there. And, as I say, was on a par with solar cycle number 24. This is a revised prediction from NASA. Again, Richard got this together for us. Thank you so much, Rich, for that. So you can see that peak that we have had for this solar cycle 25 so far. That's the biggest peak just there, and then the fall down to here. Now, notice that the thick white line has been revised upwards to just there. So, that's how solar cycle 24 peaked, maximum solar cycle 24. You see, NASA is now expecting a bigger peak than solar cycle 24, which shows that the consensus prediction, we go back to that, the consensus prediction just there, it's too low, and actually, yeah, we are going to see this solar cycle 25 becoming a bigger solar cycle, albeit will still be at the weekend of the range, and weekend of the range, and if we draw a line, if I can do that straight, you can see we're going to be quite substantially and significantly under solar cycle 23. And there's solar cycle 22, by the way, but you can see just there. Again, we're going to be very, very substantially under that. But what's interesting about this is that it looks like it's going to bring an end to the weakening solar cycles. So you see the maximum solar cycle 22 just there in the around 1990, and then we get the maximum solar cycle 23 there, which is a weaker solar maximum. Then we get another weaker solar maximum, solar cycle 24. So the trend with the solar maximums has been down. I assume this is where the idea of a delta minimum, or some not delta minimum, but a grand solar minimum even. I assume that's where the idea has been coming from, because for the last several solar cycles, the trend of maximum has been down. Whereas with this one, actually, we've broken that trend, and this is going to be not quite an increase, but it is going to be a more active solar maximum, and that breaks the trend that we've been seeing over the past 3 solar cycles to be weaker than their preceding solar cycles. So that's quite interesting. And it is a little bit of a curveball. It was unexpected that would be the case. As I say, the general consensus prediction was that this solar maximum would be on a par with, with solar cycle number 24. But no, it's actually going to be a bigger solar maximum, albeit still at the weak end of the range. So if we come back to here, I imagine that in the end, we will probably finish up maxing out somewhere around there, I think. So we'll be at the weekend of the range, but yeah, it's going to be bigger solar maximum than was anticipated. And just to show this again, Richard got this up for us. This is showing all solar cycles back to the Maunder minimum, so right way back into midst of time, going back to the 1600s. And you can see how this is from 2019, I think. So back then, that is the maximum solar cycle number 24 just there. And this was expected to be the maximum of solar cycle number 25. You see that obviously is not going to be the case, and where that red line will actually go in the end will be up to there somewhere. We will be under the maximum of solar cycle 23, however, we'll be well under maximum solar cycle 22. And solar cycle 21, maybe we'll be quite close to solar cycle 20, that one just there. We might be close to the maximum of solar cycle 20. If we go back to those very weak solar cycles, so again, this is the more than minimum period just here coincide with a little ice age from the 1500s into the 1800s and whatnot. You see several of those solar cycles clearly barely had any solar maximum. We lose like the maximum minimum phase of the solar cycle. It's really this one where we get our first sort of defined maximum minimum, although activity had been trending up a little bit before that. But, clearly we lose like maximum minimum during the Maunder minimum solar cycles. There's the Dalton minimum, by the way, numbers 5 and numbers 6 as well. So after the Maunder minimum, we lift up for a while, and then we go very quiet again during the Dalton minimum, and then we lift up again, and then we go quieter again, and then we lift up again. And it looks like we are going quieter again. So although solar cycle 25 is going to be more active than its preceding solar cycle, 24, and that will be, breaking us out of the trend for solar cycles 22, 23, 24, which have been weaker than their preceding solar cycles. Although it will be a more active solar cycle, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are ending the weakening of the solar cycles. It could well be that solar cycle 26 goes back to like a solar cycle 24 cycle. It might even be weaker than solar cycle 24. 26 will be very, very interesting to see what happens. Will the trend of increasing the strength of the solar maximum continue for solar cycle 26, or will we actually see a weaker solar cycling for 26 than 24, for example? That is going to be fascinating to see how that works out. And of course, we've got a long way to go before we get to solar cycle 26. It won't start until 2030. But, I think there'll be a lot of interest about what solar cycle 26 is going to do when we get closer to it. Bear in mind that solar cycle 25 is more active than expected. So, again, just going to show that these predictions before the solar cycle gets going on at the start of the solar cycle are not to be taken as gospel. They are subject to change. And we'll wait and see what happens. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens, isn't it? But certainly we can say there's no sort of Dalton minimum, there's no Maunder minimum, there's no grand solar minimum. At the moment, we are having a more active solar cycle than solar cycle number 24, albeit we'll still be at weak end of the range, or weaker end of the range of the solar cycles. And we shall wait and see. But all those ideas about grand solar minimum and all of that, forget it for now. But we shall see what happens. Right, there we go then. That's Solar Sunday for 2023. That's brought you up to date with everything. I hope you found this interesting and informative. As I say, we only do like one, possibly two, but normally just one Solar Sunday a year. So it really is an event type video this, and yeah, so there we go. Solar Sunday is done and dusted, and when we do our next Solar Sunday, which we might do another one later on this year. If not, it'll be in 2024. We'll be even further on into the solar max, and then we'll be able to see what's happening, and see how things are going. We'll keep you updated, of course. Of course, when we do winter updates, we'll be looking at solar activity every week, week by week, but we don't go as in-depth, with those, except when we do our solar special. One of the winter updates will be like a solar special, where we will go through all of the trackers and that, but we won't go as in-depth, generally, with winter updates as we do solar study. So it really is a once-a-year happening, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Right, you enjoy the rest of your Easter day. I'll be back later on with a 10 to 14 day, but for Solar Sunday 2023, that's all for now. Thank you so much to Richard and also to Shrine for all of the help on this Solar Sunday. And yeah, we shall see you a little bit later on with our 10 to 14 day. If you're around the channel, if not, then enjoy the rest of your Easter day. And for Solar Sunday 2023, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.